They fired me, said I'd never lead. I bought their company and became their new CEO. The fluorescent lights of Sterling Blackwood's opulent office cast a harsh, almost clinical glare on the polished mahogany table, reflecting the stark triumph in his eyes. He leaned back in his plush leather chair, a predatory smile playing on his lips, a testament to years of cultivating an aura of unchallenged authority. The air, thick with the scent of expensive cigars and unbridled ambition, seemed to vibrate with his pronouncement. "Kaelen," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, each syllable carefully weighted to diminish, to dismiss. "We've decided to let you go. Your particular vision, while perhaps academically interesting, lacks the ruthless pragmatism required to lead in this industry. You're too idealistic, too focused on nebulous concepts like long-term innovation when we need immediate returns. You'll never lead a company, Kaelen. Mark my words. You'll simply fade away, a forgotten footnote in the annals of tech." His words, designed to sting, to shatter, to diminish, echoed in the sudden, almost suffocating silence of the room. Across from him, Kaelen sat still, hands resting lightly on the lap, an expression of neutral composure carefully maintained. Inside, beneath the calm exterior, a quiet, almost serene understanding settled over the engineer. What Sterling perceived was weakness, a man defeated, perhaps even broken. But what he saw was merely the surface, a meticulously constructed facade beneath which an intricate, audacious plan had been woven thread by careful thread over many years. Sterling had no idea. He believed he was severing a limb, discarding a non-essential, even detrimental, part of his empire. In truth, he was merely providing the spark, the final, crucial catalyst for a transformation he could never comprehend, a transformation that had been patiently anticipated. Kaelen met Sterling's gaze, not with anger, nor with despair, but with a gaze that held a quiet, knowing depth. It unnerved Sterling slightly. Kaelen could discern the flicker of confusion in those arrogant eyes, quickly masked by habitual self-importance. Sterling expected an outburst, a plea for reconsideration, a breakdown. He expected the confirmation of his own superior judgment, the validation of his ruthless corporate philosophy. But Kaelen offered none of that. Only a slow, deliberate nod. "Kaelen understands, Sterling," was the reply, the voice steady, devoid of emotion, a carefully calibrated neutrality. "And Kaelen wishes you and the company all the very best." That calm response seemed to deflate some of Sterling's self-satisfaction. A slight frown touched his brow as he straightened, perhaps momentarily unsure how to react to such an unexpected lack of resistance. "Good. Then we're clear." He gestured dismissively towards the door, a final indication that the conversation, and Kaelen's career at OmniCorp, was concluded. "HR will handle the severance package. Kaelen has until the end of the day to clear the desk." As Kaelen rose, a deliberate moment was taken to survey the office. A vast panorama of the city stretched out behind Sterling, an imposing backdrop to his self-proclaimed pinnacle of achievement. For Sterling, this view, this space, represented everything, a testament to his ruthlessness, his strategic acumen, his dominance. For Kaelen, however, it represented a starting line, a launching pad. Sterling had just, unknowingly, handed Kaelen the very fuel needed for takeoff. He had no idea that for years, Kaelen had been building something he never saw coming, an intricate network of knowledge, connections, and, most importantly, an unwavering resolve forged in the very fires of his dismissive arrogance. He thought he was closing a chapter, neatly binding Kaelen's story. He was, in fact, merely turning the page to the most unexpected, and for him, the most terrifying part of the narrative. The game, as the saying goes, had just begun, and Sterling was completely unaware that he was already losing. Kaelen's silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of a spring being coiled, tightening with immense potential energy, waiting for the precise moment to unleash its power. The seeds of what was to come had been sown long ago, patiently cultivated in the shadows, far from the harsh glare of Sterling's self-congratulatory spotlight. He thought he was casting Kaelen out into the dark. He was, unknowingly, pushing Kaelen into the very environment where true strength would flourish, unconstrained by his suffocating limitations. He saw Kaelen's quiet acceptance as capitulation. Kaelen saw it as the ultimate strategic advantage, the element of surprise. And that, in the world of high-stakes technology, was more valuable than any algorithm or patent. It was the currency of true disruption. Kaelen's mind was already leagues ahead, calculating, adapting, preparing for the grand re-entry Sterling would never anticipate. To understand that moment, to truly grasp the quiet resolve that settled over Kaelen as Sterling Blackwood so summarily dismissed Kaelen's worth, one must first comprehend the journey that led Kaelen to his opulent office. The path into the world of technology wasn't paved with the desire for power or quick riches, but with a profound, almost obsessive fascination for how systems work, how they can be optimized, and how they can be used to solve complex problems with elegant simplicity. From a young age, perhaps even before formal education, Kaelen was drawn to the elegant logic of code, the limitless potential of innovation, the intricate dance of data. This passion wasn't a hobby that could be picked up and put down. It was an intrinsic part of Kaelen's very being, a core drive. Hours melted into days as Kaelen poured into the work, often spending nights and weekends delving deeper into theoretical frameworks and experimental architectures, long after others had clocked out or turned their attention to leisure. The satisfaction came not from recognition, but from solving a particularly knotty problem, from seeing a complex system finally hum with efficiency. When Kaelen joined Sterling's burgeoning company, OmniCorp, it was, in its nascent stages, a vibrant, ambitious startup, fueled by a genuine desire to push technological boundaries. Kaelen was drawn by the promise of groundbreaking work, the potential to truly shape the future, to be part of something genuinely transformative. The ascent through the ranks was swift and seemingly effortless, driven by an innate knack for anticipating technological shifts and designing resilient, scalable systems that could withstand the unforeseen challenges of rapid growth. This earned Kaelen the title of Senior Software Architect by the late 20s, a position of significant influence. It was Kaelen who often delivered the critical breakthroughs, the elegant solutions to seemingly intractable problems that left others scratching their heads. Kaelen's ideas, the sophisticated algorithms, the robust architectural designs, these often formed the very backbone of OmniCorp's most successful, market-defining products. There was a particular project, an AI-driven predictive analytics engine that revolutionized market forecasting for their clients, that stood out. Kaelen had worked tirelessly on it, often sleeping in the office, fueled by coffee and sheer determination. The launch was a monumental success, propelling OmniCorp into the top tier of tech companies. Yet, in the celebratory press conferences, Sterling took all the credit, painting the engine as a product of his unparalleled vision, while Kaelen's name was barely mentioned, if at all. But as OmniCorp grew, so did Sterling Blackwood's ego, expanding to fill every available space, overshadowing the very innovations that had propelled the company forward. The company, once a beacon of unbridled innovation and collaborative spirit, slowly, almost imperceptibly, morphed into a monolithic entity driven solely by quarterly profits, aggressive market dominance, and a relentless focus on shareholder value above all else. Sterling, a master of self-promotion, a charismatic figure adept at presenting other people's hard work as his own genius, began to eclipse the very innovations he claimed to champion. Kaelen's foundational contributions were often downplayed, attributed to team effort, or, more gallingly, to executive vision. Kaelen's quiet, analytical nature, a genuine disinterest in the political dance of the boardroom and the superficialities of corporate networking, made Kaelen an easy target for his appropriation. Kaelen simply wanted to build, to create, to innovate. The accolades seemed secondary, almost irrelevant. This very humility was perceived as a weakness. The memory of countless meetings was etched into Kaelen's mind, vivid and frustrating. Kaelen would present a revolutionary concept, perhaps a new decentralized data architecture or an experimental machine learning model with vast potential, only for Sterling to nod dismissively, perhaps offer a superficial, often unhelpful, critique. Then, weeks or months later, Sterling would unveil the exact same idea, slightly rebranded, as his own stroke of brilliance, often at a major industry conference to thunderous applause. He saw Kaelen's humility as a lack of ambition, Kaelen's quiet dedication as a sign of someone easily manipulated, someone who wouldn't fight for credit. Sterling often told Kaelen, with a patronizing smirk, that Kaelen lacked the killer instinct, the personal brand necessary to climb the corporate ladder in the ruthlessly competitive tech world. Meanwhile, Kaelen observed the company becoming stagnant, its focus shifting from true, disruptive innovation to iterative improvements designed to squeeze every last drop of profit from existing, often aging, technologies. Warnings about emerging competitors, about the urgent need to invest in truly disruptive R&D rather than just acquiring small startups, were met with patronizing smiles and outright dismissal. Kaelen, you're a brilliant engineer, Sterling would often say, his voice dripping with feigned admiration. But you lack the strategic vision for the whole picture. We operate in the real world, where profits matter. This constant invalidation, this systematic undervaluing of Kaelen's intellectual contributions and strategic foresight began to chip away at Kaelen's initial idealism, like water eroding stone. A stark realization began to crystallize. Kaelen's future, the ability to truly innovate and make a profound, lasting impact, would never fully materialize within OmniCorp under Sterling's leadership. It wasn't just about recognition. It was about the fundamental misalignment of values. Sterling chased quick wins, fleeting trends, and immediate financial gratification. Kaelen pursued lasting transformation, foundational shifts, and true, sustainable value. The frustration grew, not into anger, but into a quiet, simmering determination. This growing disillusionment became the fertile ground for Kaelen's secret weapon. It wasn't a single invention or a hidden partner in the traditional sense. It was a deeply personal and unconventional strategy that had been cultivated for years, even before the full extent of Sterling's hubris became apparent. From the moment Kaelen earned the first significant salary at OmniCorp, a commitment was made to an almost monastic discipline of saving and investing. While peers spent lavishly on luxury cars, oversized homes, and exotic vacations, Kaelen lived frugally, funneling every spare dollar into carefully researched, high-risk, high-reward ventures. Kaelen became an early, aggressive investor in nascent technologies that Sterling and OmniCorp, blinded by their existing success, deemed too speculative, too niche, or too far off to matter in the immediate profit-driven landscape. Decentralized computing protocols, advanced AI research initiatives focusing on general intelligence rather than narrow applications, and obscure quantum computing startups operating out of university labs and garages. These weren't just financial investments. They were intellectual investments. Kaelen spent countless hours understanding these emerging ecosystems, delving into white papers, participating in obscure online forums, and, most importantly, building genuine connections with the brilliant, often overlooked minds operating at the very fringes of the industry, far from the corporate spotlight of Silicon Valley. These were people who valued ideas and potential over immediate monetization, much like Kaelen. There was a particular connection forged with Dr. Eris Thorne, a reclusive quantum physicist whose groundbreaking work was largely ignored by mainstream tech. Yet Kaelen saw its immense future potential. Regular, clandestine video calls with Thorne provided invaluable insights, solidifying Kaelen's conviction. Kaelen's true secret weapon was twofold. First, an unparalleled, self-taught expertise in these next-generation technologies that would inevitably redefine the entire industry, an expertise OmniCorp entirely lacked, clinging as it did to its legacy systems. Second, the financial independence meticulously built through those early, prescient investments. Kaelen wasn't just an employee. Kaelen was a quiet, self-funded research and development powerhouse, building a parallel future, brick by painstaking brick. Kaelen knew that one day, the established giants, blinded by their own success and complacency, would be forced to adapt or perish. And when that day came, Kaelen would not only be ready, but uniquely positioned. Kaelen was building an own future outside the stifling walls of Sterling's empire, waiting for the precise moment when the foundation laid would prove stronger, more resilient, and more innovative than the crumbling facade Sterling so proudly maintained. Every slight, every dismissive comment, every instance of stolen credit only reinforced Kaelen's conviction and sharpened the quiet, burning resolve. Kaelen wasn't preparing to just survive. Kaelen was preparing to thrive, on own terms, and ultimately, to redefine the very landscape Sterling thought he controlled. The day Kaelen walked out of OmniCorp, a strange, profound sense of liberation washed over the engineer. It wasn't merely the relief of escaping a bad situation or a toxic environment, but the exhilarating feeling of shedding a heavy, constricting skin, finally free to become what Kaelen was always meant to be. The severance package Sterling so magnanimously offered, a paltry sum in his estimation, was a mere pittance compared to the robust financial cushion Kaelen had meticulously built, a testament to years of disciplined savings and shrewd investments in those very technologies Sterling had dismissed as fringe and irrelevant. Kaelen didn't scramble for another job. There was no moment wasted wallowing in perceived failure or nursing wounds of indignation. Instead, Kaelen retreated into a carefully constructed world, a private sanctuary where innovation was paramount, and true value was measured not in quarterly reports or stock prices, but in the profound, transformative impact of disruptive ideas. This was a phase of intense focus, almost isolation. Kaelen's first act, after ensuring a secure, quiet workspace, a modest, purpose-built lab in a discreet, anonymous building, was to establish Nexus Innovations. The name itself was a deliberate statement. A nexus, a central connection point for groundbreaking ideas, for unparalleled talent, for the very future of technology. Unlike OmniCorp, which had become a lumbering giant, resistant to change and burdened by bureaucracy, Nexus was designed to be agile, lean, and relentlessly forward-thinking. Kaelen consciously built a team of like-minded individuals, brilliant, passionate engineers, visionary designers, and ethical AI specialists who, like Kaelen, felt stifled by the corporate rigidity and short-sightedness of the industry's established players. Many were connections made during Kaelen's fringe explorations. Others were discreetly poached from large corporations who had similarly undervalued their genius. One notable recruit was Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant cryptographer Kaelen had met at a closed-door symposium on quantum encryption, who shared a similar frustration with corporate stagnation. Nexus operated in stealth mode for the initial years, a quiet force beneath the radar, far from the clamor of the mainstream tech news cycle. This allowed for uninhibited experimentation and rapid iteration. The company's focus was singular, laser-sharp, to develop and commercialize the very technologies Kaelen had been researching and investing in for years. Nexus wasn't chasing trends. It was creating them, defining the next wave. The team delved deep into advanced AI models that could learn and adapt with unprecedented efficiency and ethical frameworks, explored the practical applications of quantum computing for unbreakable data encryption and complex problem-solving far beyond classical computers, and built robust, decentralized platforms that offered superior security, scalability, and transparency. Kaelen's hard-won financial independence meant Nexus wasn't beholden to venture capitalists demanding immediate returns or impatient board members dictating product roadmaps based on fleeting market fads. Kaelen had the invaluable luxury of patience, the freedom to invest in true, long-term innovation, to build solutions that would fundamentally change how entire industries operated, not just incrementally improve existing ones. The initial years were challenging, requiring immense dedication, but the results were undeniable. Nexus secured key patents that would prove pivotal and attracted a growing list of discerning clients through word of mouth, clients who sought truly revolutionary solutions. While Nexus innovations quietly gained traction, securing those vital patents and attracting a growing list of discerning clients through word of mouth, clients tired of the incremental improvements offered by industry giants, Sterling Blackwood remained utterly oblivious. From his ivory tower at OmniCorp, he likely viewed Kaelen's sudden disappearance from the corporate scene as unequivocal proof of his own sagacity and prophetic judgment. He probably assumed Kaelen had either taken a menial, less demanding role somewhere, or worse, faded into the obscurity he had so confidently predicted. OmniCorp, meanwhile, continued its slow, almost imperceptible decline. They still posted profits, relying on their existing market share and aggressive marketing campaigns. But their fundamental market share was eroding, their once innovative products becoming increasingly outdated, their core technologies showing their age. They continued to rely on iterative updates, on aggressive marketing, and on acquiring smaller companies for their quick revenue boosts rather than investing in foundational R&D that would secure their long-term future. The industry, unbeknownst to Sterling, was fundamentally shifting beneath his feet, and OmniCorp was being left behind, a behemoth slowly sinking into the quicksand of its own complacent inertia. The once vibrant halls of OmniCorp now felt heavier, a sense of quiet desperation permeating the air. Kaelen would occasionally see articles about OmniCorp, about their declining stock performance, their struggles to retain top talent, or their inability to adapt to new market demands. There was no joy in their struggles, only a quiet confirmation of what Kaelen had always known. The relentless pursuit of short-term profit at the expense of long-term vision was a recipe for obsolescence. Kaelen's focus remained entirely on Nexus. The new company built its reputation on substance, not on flash or self-promotion. The breakthroughs were revolutionary, the technology robust, the client satisfaction unparalleled. Nexus was solving problems that OmniCorp couldn't even comprehend, let alone address. Problems that were quietly becoming critical across various industries. The grander plan, simmering beneath the surface for years, wasn't about immediate revenge. It was about building something undeniably superior, something so fundamentally advanced that it would render OmniCorp's existing structure obsolete. It was about creating a parallel reality where Kaelen's vision could flourish unencumbered, where true innovation was celebrated and nurtured. And as the years passed, that reality became increasingly potent, increasingly powerful, its influence spreading like a silent tide. Kaelen's network expanded exponentially, drawing in the brightest minds from around the globe, the most discerning investors who saw beyond the quarterly reports, and the most visionary clients who understood the profound implications of Nexus's work. Kaelen wasn't just building a company. Kaelen was building an ecosystem, an alternative future for the technology world, one built on foresight and genuine progress. And then, the whispers began to grow louder. The news of OmniCorp's deepening financial woes, their increasingly desperate attempts to stay relevant, the internal strife within their board, started to reach Kaelen's ears through the vast network. They were vulnerable, their stock plummeting, their board in disarray, actively seeking solutions. The pieces were beginning to align. The opportunity, the one Kaelen had patiently, strategically anticipated and prepared for, was finally presenting itself. Sterling, in his colossal arrogance, had seen Kaelen's departure as a minor blip, an easily forgotten footnote. He had no idea that Kaelen had merely gone silent to build a weapon far more formidable than he could ever imagine, a weapon forged from the very ideals he had so arrogantly dismissed. And soon, it would be ready for deployment. The summons arrived discreetly, an encrypted message from a trusted intermediary within the industry, a former colleague from a different company who had admired Kaelen's work and shared a mutual disdain for corporate stagnation. OmniCorp's situation had deteriorated far beyond public knowledge. It was in a death spiral. They were teetering on the brink of collapse, facing a hostile takeover bid from a predatory hedge fund named Vanguard Holdings that sought to dismantle the company for its valuable patents and assets, stripping it bare for quick profit. The board, desperate and fragmented, paralyzed by their own indecision and Sterling's increasingly erratic leadership, was seeking a white knight, a last-ditch savior who could offer a viable alternative to total annihilation. Kaelen's network, painstakingly cultivated over years, had positioned Nexus Innovations as the only entity with the vision, the capital, and the technological advantage to not just save OmniCorp, but to truly transform it. The day of the emergency board meeting was overcast, mirroring the grim, almost funereal mood that pervaded OmniCorp's executive floor. The air was thick with tension, palpable even in the hushed corridors. Kaelen arrived not as a supplicant, but as an invited guest, though Kaelen's identity as the potential rescuer remained a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few sympathetic board members who had secretly reached out. The tension in the boardroom was suffocating. Sterling Blackwood, his face etched with strain, the usual self-assured swagger replaced by a nervous energy, paced before the large holographic display. He was desperately trying to project an air of control he clearly did not possess, his usual bravado replaced by a thin, almost translucent veneer of desperation. "We are at a critical juncture," Sterling declared, his voice hoarse, a tremor of fear betraying his forced composure. "This predatory offer from Vanguard Holdings is an insult, an attempt to tear down everything we've built, to erase our legacy. We need a counteroffer, a miracle. We need someone who understands the true, intrinsic value of OmniCorp, someone willing to invest in its future, not dismantle it." He paused, scanning the room, his eyes lingering on the somber, anxious faces of the board members, searching for any glimmer of hope or support. "We have one last potential suitor, an entity that has remained anonymous until this very moment. They have submitted a binding offer, one that values OmniCorp significantly higher than Vanguard's. They have also stipulated a change in leadership, effective immediately, should the offer be accepted. They insisted on presenting their terms in person." At that precise moment, as if on cue, the heavy oak doors at the back of the boardroom swung open, revealing the figure standing calmly in the threshold. All eyes turned. Kaelen walked in, steps measured and calm, gaze steady, surveying the shocked faces. A collective gasp, a ripple of disbelief, swept through the room. Board members exchanged bewildered glances, some squinting, trying to place the familiar yet utterly unexpected face. Sterling, mid-sentence, froze. His eyes, initially narrowed in irritation at the interruption, widened incrementally, then snapped into disbelief. His jaw dropped, a grotesque tableau of utter shock. The color drained from his face, leaving it ashen, almost spectral. "Kaelen," he whispered, the single word a choked gasp of pure, unadulterated shock. His voice held a tremor of something akin to terror, as if he had just witnessed a ghost, a specter from a past he had arrogantly buried and forgotten. He gripped the table, knuckles white, barely able to support himself. Kaelen walked to the head of the table, directly opposite Sterling, and took a seat with deliberate calm. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the frantic whispers and rustling of papers from the stunned board members. Kaelen's eyes met Sterling's, and for the first time, Sterling saw not the humble, easily dismissed engineer he had discarded, but the architect of his own downfall, the very embodiment of his failures. "Good morning, gentlemen, ladies," Kaelen began, the voice clear and resonant, cutting through the thick, electrified tension. Kaelen Vance is the name, and Nexus Innovations, Kaelen's company, has just completed the acquisition of OmniCorp. The words hung in the air, shattering the last vestiges of Sterling's composure. He staggered back, reaching for the edge of the table for support, his eyes wide with a desperate, frantic energy. "Acquisition," he spluttered, his voice rising, bordering on hysteria, fueled by a potent mix of disbelief and mounting rage. "That's impossible. You were fired. You had nothing. You were supposed to disappear, to fade away." Kaelen allowed a faint, knowing smile to touch the lips, a quiet acknowledgement of the irony. "Indeed, Sterling, you saw to that. You personally ensured it. But what you failed to see, what you consistently underestimated, was the value of true innovation and long-term vision. While OmniCorp focused on short-term gains, internal politics, and superficial market dominance, Nexus Innovations was quietly building the future. Nexus invested heavily in the very technologies you dismissed as irrelevant, as too speculative. Our AI platforms, our quantum encryption solutions, our decentralized networks, they are now industry standards, powering the very infrastructure that OmniCorp failed to develop, failed to even comprehend. Kaelen's early, disciplined investments, coupled with the exponential growth and undeniable breakthroughs of Nexus, provided the capital. The board's desperation and your company's declining value, Sterling, provided the opportunity. Kaelen leaned forward slightly, voice dropping to a calm, authoritative tone that brooked no argument. "The terms of the acquisition are clear. Nexus Innovations will absorb OmniCorp's assets, its vast patent portfolio, and, crucially, its talent, the brilliant engineers and visionaries who have long been stifled here. However, the existing executive leadership, the very individuals who presided over this precipitous decline, will be replaced. Effective immediately, as per the binding agreement you just approved, Kaelen Vance is your new CEO." Sterling Blackwood's face contorted in a grotesque mask of pure rage and utter, soul-crushing devastation. He lunged forward, a primal scream caught in his throat, but a quick-thinking board member and security personnel quickly intervened, restraining him before he could reach Kaelen. The room erupted in a flurry of whispers, stunned exclamations, and rapid, hushed conversations. The irony was brutal, the reversal complete. He had prophesied Kaelen's disappearance, Kaelen's failure to lead. Instead, Kaelen had returned not as a footnote, but as the author of Sterling's final chapter, the very personification of his greatest fear. The game was over, and the one he thought he had banished had just claimed the ultimate victory, right from under his arrogant nose. The immediate aftermath of Kaelen's announcement was a chaotic tableau of disbelief, stunned silence, and rapidly shifting allegiances. Sterling Blackwood, his face a mask of contorted fury and utter humiliation, was escorted from the boardroom by security, his protests devolving into incoherent shouts and guttural cries of injustice. He was a broken man, stripped of his power, exposed for his hubris, a hollow shell of his former, self-important self. Kaelen watched him go, not with a sense of triumphant glee, but with a quiet sense of finality. The personal vendetta, born of his dismissive cruelty and intellectual appropriation, was settled. Now, the real work began, the transformation of a corporate behemoth into something agile and innovative. The remaining board members, a group of seasoned executives whose expressions ranged from utter shock to dawning realization and calculating opportunism, quickly attempted to recalibrate. There were mumbled apologies, suddenly outstretched hands, and immediate, effusive offers of loyalty. They spoke of always seeing Kaelen's potential, of regretting past oversights and being held back by previous leadership. Kaelen listened patiently, observing their rapid attempts to align themselves with the new power structure, a stark contrast to their previous complicity in Sterling's reign of stagnation. Kaelen understood their motivations, a blend of self-preservation and genuine, if belated, recognition. For now, their cooperation was essential for a smooth transition. Kaelen's first act as the new CEO was to address the board, not with a tirade or a list of demands, but with a clear, concise vision for OmniCorp's future, now firmly under the Nexus Innovations umbrella. "This isn't about retribution," Kaelen stated, the voice firm but calm, projecting an aura of composed authority. "It's about course correction. OmniCorp possesses incredible talent, a rich history, and valuable assets. But it lost its way, chasing fleeting trends and prioritizing short-term gains instead of investing in true, foundational innovation. Nexus Innovations brings the vision, the technology, and the strategic foresight to put OmniCorp back at the forefront of the industry. We will be leaner, more agile, and our focus will be on groundbreaking R&D, not just iterative updates or market acquisitions." Kaelen then outlined plans for immediate integration of Nexus's core technologies, a move that would breathe new life into OmniCorp's aging product lines. News of the acquisition and Kaelen's utterly unexpected return as CEO rippled through OmniCorp like a shockwave. Employees were stunned. There was confusion, trepidation, but also a palpable sense of hope. Many of the long-term employees, especially the engineers and developers who had witnessed Sterling's steady erosion of the company's innovative spirit, felt a flicker of optimism, a long-dormant spark reignited. Kaelen's reputation as a brilliant, if understated, engineer had preceded this return. They remembered the breakthroughs Kaelen had spearheaded, the innovative solutions delivered during OmniCorp's golden age. Kaelen's return, though unprecedented and shocking, hinted at a return to the company's roots, to its original promise of technological leadership. Kaelen didn't waste time on elaborate public statements or grand, superficial gestures. The approach was deliberate, strategic, and focused on rebuilding trust from the ground up and re-establishing a culture of true innovation. Kaelen held extensive town hall meetings, speaking directly to employees across all departments, answering their questions with honesty and transparency. Plans were outlined to integrate Nexus's advanced technologies into OmniCorp's existing infrastructure, to invest heavily in R&D, and to empower engineers to pursue truly disruptive ideas without fear of corporate politics or short-sighted profit mandates. Kaelen personally visited various departments, engaging with teams, listening to their frustrations and their ideas, making it clear that their voices mattered. There were difficult decisions to be made, of course. Redundant departments were streamlined, inefficient processes overhauled, often requiring tough conversations and painful but necessary adjustments. Some key executives loyal to Sterling, or those unwilling to adapt to the new, meritocratic culture, chose to leave, and Kaelen allowed them to depart without animosity. Kaelen's priority was to cultivate a team aligned with Nexus's values: intellectual curiosity, a collaborative spirit, and an unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Kaelen knew that the transformation wouldn't be easy, that significant cultural shifts take time and effort, but Kaelen had faced greater challenges, particularly those of quiet, solitary perseverance. The initial shock gave way to a quiet determination across the company. OmniCorp, battered by years of neglect and misdirection, was now under new stewardship, guided by a vision that had been dismissed as too idealistic just a few years prior. The wheels of change had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. A few years have passed since that tumultuous day. The name OmniCorp still exists, but it's now a powerful, thriving subsidiary within the larger, more expansive ecosystem of Nexus Innovations. The transformation has been profound and undeniable. Kaelen systematically dismantled the bureaucratic layers that stifled creativity, replaced the culture of fear and internal competition with one of open collaboration and shared purpose, and reinvested in the foundational research that had once been OmniCorp's hallmark. Nexus's AI platforms, now seamlessly integrated into every aspect of the former OmniCorp's operations, have revolutionized their product lines, bringing them to the forefront of their respective markets, surpassing all competitors. Nexus's quantum security solutions protect their most sensitive data, a capability Sterling could never have envisioned, let alone implemented. The synergy between Nexus's cutting-edge R&D and OmniCorp's established market reach created an unstoppable force. Today, Nexus Innovation stands as a testament to the power of vision, resilience, and unwavering patience. Nexus is not merely profitable. It is a force for positive disruption, consistently pushing the boundaries of what technology can achieve, impacting global industries in profound ways. Nexus's headquarters, once sprawling and impersonal, now hums with a vibrant, almost electric energy, a collective passion for innovation that Kaelen had always dreamed of fostering. Kaelen's role as CEO is no longer about fighting internal battles or proving personal worth to skeptical superiors. It is about guiding this collective genius, empowering brilliant minds to pursue their passions, and ensuring that Nexus's innovations genuinely serve humanity and push the boundaries of knowledge. The quiet satisfaction Kaelen feels isn't primarily from having won against Sterling, though that historical closure is undeniable, but from having built something truly meaningful, something that embodies the very principles Sterling so scorned. Sterling Blackwood? He is, as he predicted for Kaelen, largely a forgotten figure in the industry, his name synonymous with a bygone era of corporate ruthlessness and short-sightedness. His name occasionally surfaces in cautionary tales about corporate hubris and the perils of prioritizing immediate profit over genuine innovation. He attempted to launch a few smaller ventures after his downfall, trying to recapture some of his past glory, but without the corporate machinery, the established brand, and, crucially, the ability to claim others' ideas as his own, they quickly fizzled out, proving that his genius was largely derivative. The ruthless pragmatism he so prided himself on, divorced from true foresight and adaptability, proved to be his ultimate undoing in a world that increasingly demanded genuine innovation and long-term vision. He disappeared not into obscurity, but into irrelevance, a far more profound and stinging form of professional demise. For Kaelen, the journey was never truly about revenge. It was about validation, not for Sterling, who was incapable of truly understanding, but for Kaelen's self, for the quiet conviction that had always burned within. It was about proving that true leadership isn't about power or ego, but about foresight, about empowering others, and about having the courage to build something lasting, even when the path is unconventional and fraught with skepticism. The initial feeling of being undervalued, of being dismissed, of having one's contributions appropriated, was a crucible that forged an unshakable resolve. It taught Kaelen that sometimes the greatest strength lies in quiet preparation, in believing in your own vision when no one else does, and in understanding that true success often comes not from conforming to existing structures, but from building entirely new ones from the ground up. So, if you find yourself in a similar position, dismissed, underestimated, told you lack what it takes, remember this. The greatest revenge isn't a fiery outburst. It's the quiet, meticulous construction of your own undeniable success. The most profound leadership isn't about demanding authority. It's about earning it through undeniable competence and unwavering vision. And sometimes, the very people who try to hold you back are, unknowingly, providing the precise impetus you need to soar to heights they could never even imagine. Believe in your vision. Cultivate your unique strengths and build your own future. The world will eventually catch up, and when it does, you'll be ready not just to lead, but to redefine what leadership truly means. If stories like Kaelen's resonate with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss similar narratives of triumph and transformation. We often explore the hidden depths of success and the unexpected paths to true leadership. What part of Kaelen's journey did you find most inspiring? Have you ever had a moment where being underestimated became your greatest strength? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.